Amelia had come to Wraith Beach seeking peace, but the ocean had other plans. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of blood, orange and bruised purple, an unsettling feeling washed over her. The wind carried whispers, the waves seemed to beckon, and the beach itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting. Something was about to happen. The salt spray stung Amelia's face as she trudged across the desolate beach, the wind whipping her hair into a frenzy. The sky, a bruised purple grey, mirrored the turmoil in her heart. She'd come to this isolated stretch of coastline, known locally as Wraith Beach, seeking solace, a way to escape the suffocating grief that had clung to her since her husband, Ben, had vanished at sea a year ago. Wraith Beach was notorious for its treacherous currents and sudden violent storms. Locals whispered stories of the restless spirits of drowned sailors, their cries carried on the wind, their spectral forms glimpsed in the swirling mists that often shrouded the shore. Amelia, a woman of science, had dismissed these tales as folklore, the product of overactive imaginations and the melancholic beauty of the place. But tonight, as the wind howled like a banshee and the waves crashed against the shore with a thunderous roar, a sliver of doubt crept into her rational mind. She'd chosen this spot specifically for its isolation. She needed to be alone, to scream her pain into the wind, to let the raw emotion that had been bottled up inside her for so long finally break free. As she walked, she imagined Ben beside her, his hand in hers, the familiar warmth of his smile. The memory was a bittersweet ache, a reminder of what she had lost. The beach was deserted, save for the gnarled, wind-sculpted trees that clung precariously to the cliffs overlooking the shore. The only sound besides the wind and waves was the mournful cry of seagulls circling overhead. Amelia walked until she reached a rocky outcrop that jutted out into the sea, a natural pier battered by the relentless waves. She climbed onto the rocks, the cold stone biting into her skin, and looked out at the churning ocean. "Ben!" she cried, her voice barely audible above the wind. "Where are you?" The wind seemed to answer her, a gust of icy air that sent a shiver down her spine. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to ward off the chill, but it was more than just the cold. It was a feeling of unease, a sense of being watched. She scanned the beach, half expecting to see someone, but there was no one there. Just the endless stretch of sand, the raging sea, and the darkening sky. She told herself she was being foolish, that her grief was playing tricks on her mind, but the feeling persisted, a prickling sensation on the back of her neck. As the last vestiges of daylight faded, a thick mist began to roll in from the sea, shrouding the beach in an eerie, ethereal glow. The wind seemed to intensify, carrying with it a low, mournful wail that sent chills down Amelia's spine. It sounded like voices. She strained her ears, trying to make sense of the sounds. They were faint, indistinct, but they were there, carried on the wind, whispering her name. Amelia. She froze, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew it was her imagination, that the wind was playing tricks on her ears, but the whispers sounded so real, so close. Amelia. The mist swirled around her, obscuring the already fading light. She felt a coldness that seeped into her bones, a presence that was both terrifying and strangely familiar. Suddenly she saw it. A figure emerged from the mist, translucent and shimmering, its form flickering in the dim light. It was a man, his face pale and gaunt, his eyes filled with a deep sadness. He was reaching out to her, his hand outstretched. "Ben?" she whispered, her voice trembling. The figure didn't answer. It simply continued to reach for her, its eyes fixed on hers. As Amelia stared, she noticed other figures emerging from the mist, all of them reaching out, their faces filled with longing and despair. They were the drowned sailors, the restless spirits of Wraith Beach. Panic seized her. She stumbled back, knocking against the rocks. She wanted to run, to escape the ghostly figures that were closing in on her, but her legs felt like lead. "Leave me alone," she cried, her voice cracking. The figures didn't heed her pleas. They continued to advance, their spectral forms shimmering in the mist. Amelia closed her eyes, bracing herself for the inevitable, but then, Just as she thought she was about to be engulfed by the ghostly figures, the wind shifted. The mist began to dissipate, revealing the moon struggling to break through the clouds. The ghostly figures flickered and faded, disappearing back into the mist from whence they came. Amelia opened her eyes, gasping for breath. The beach was once again deserted, the only sound the crashing of the waves. She was alone. She didn't know what she had seen. Had it been real, or had it been a hallucination, a product of her grief-stricken mind? She didn't know. But as she looked out at the churning sea, she felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt in a long time. She knew that Ben was gone, that he wasn't coming back. But she also knew that she wasn't alone. She felt a connection to the lost souls of Wraith Beach, a shared sense of loss and longing. She turned and walked away from the beach, the wind at her back, the cries of the gulls echoing in her ears. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew that she would carry the memory of Ben with her, always. And she knew that she would never forget the night she encountered the haunted beach. Amelia never returned to Wraith Beach, but the beach never truly left her. The whispers followed her, faint at first, then growing louder, more insistent. She would catch glimpses of figures in the periphery of her vision, their eyes filled with a longing that chilled her to the bone. She had disturbed something that night, awakened a presence that now sought her out. The ocean's embrace was long and unforgiving, and Amelia knew, with a growing dread, that the wraiths of the beach had not finished with her yet.